Hello and welcome to the Transform Your Life podcast. I'm Angela Hauk and I am so excited to have you here with me today. For those that checked out episode 1, thank you so much. I truly appreciate your time and it's been amazing to receive such wonderful feedback. For those that have left ratings and reviews, just know that it means so much that you're taking the time to do that, because that means that more people are going to discover the podcast and we're going to be able to just grow our audience and spread the information to more people around the world. We are going to get right into things. I do apologize. I've been a little bit sick this week, lost my voice for a couple of days, so might be a little bit raspy, but I'm here and let's do it. Question number 1 is, how do you balance fitness with business, mommyhood, social, friends? How are you able to juggle all of those things? In starting my response for this question, I do want you all to know that what works for me may be totally wrong for you. I am going to go into the things that I find really ideal, but the main part is that you have the self-awareness to know what is going to work really well for you, and then you just go for it. So for me, in the process of finding myself and feeling out what works in terms of scheduling with work, I have come to realize that I work really good a couple days a week, long shifts, so I'll power through all of my work for 14 or 16 hours, and it's concentrated into 2 days, and that's when I deal with all my clients, and then I'm able to just power through it. For some people, that wouldn't work or that wouldn't feel really right for you. But for me, I find then on the other days, I'm really able to focus on the other aspects of my life. So if it's a Monday or a Thursday, I'm able to just focus on hanging out with my son. And I think the division of my time that way allows me to be very present and just focused on wearing one hat. And what I've been able to discover is that when I was trying to shift back and forth from multiple hats, go from career woman and then right back into being a mom and trying to juggle all of those things all at once, the lines became blended and I found that I wasn't able to efficiently spend my time focused on the types of characteristics that I needed for that particular task. So my tip would be to organize your time in the way that you're able to devote your energy all in on one activity. I also recommend that you find a time that fitness works best for you. So for me, what I've been able to discover over the past couple of months is that if I get up at 4:30 and I get my workout done before I'm dealing with my son and before I'm getting my day going with my fiancee, I'm just in a way better headspace. I've always known that I don't like to have a lot of conversations in the morning. First thing, I like to have my coffee. I'm just kind of in like mellow mode. Or I like to have my coffee and then shift into working right away. I'm not ready for that like social interaction with them. But what I found is if I get up and I get my workout in prior to interacting with them, I'm just feeling a lot better. So I would also say that when it comes to your exercise, it's important to find what will feel best for you with the flow of the day and then go all in on it with your scheduling. The other tip I have is I use Google Calendar and literally schedule everything into my Google Calendar so obsessively, down to every lunch date and this I'm getting together with this person on the weekend and I'm going to call my mom today, and all of those things that I'm planning to do are all in my Google Calendar so that I don't have to think about it when it comes time to do them, right? I just go in my calendar. Okay, right now I'm going to call my mom. And for some people, that much scheduling might not feel right. But for me, it allows me the ability to plan out my week, color coordinate different sections. So color coordinate my social stuff, color coordinate my workouts, color coordinate my work related stuff, and be super organized with my time. So I don't feel as though I'm going back to a task list all of the time and then trying to prioritize what's my most important thing to do today. I'll sit down and kind of have the entire week organized so that I'm feeling really good about the way that the time is being managed. The other thing I find incredibly helpful when it comes to balance is being okay with the fact that sometimes certain things in our lives are not going to be priorities, and sometimes they are going to be priorities. In my life, there's a lot of things that are not priorities that I believe bring a lot of time to my day. So some of those things are barely watch TV. I'm not a big clean person. I don't like to spend a lot of time cleaning my house. If Theo makes a mess, sometimes I'll clean it at the end of the day, but very often I don't. I feel like sometimes we can look from an external perspective and people will say to me, how do you do it all? And really, I don't do it all. If you came to my house, maybe you would be surprised because it's not spick and span and there's dust and those kind of things. But I think it's important that whatever means something to you or whatever is a priority to you is where you're allocating a lot of time. So when it comes to fitness goals or weight loss goals, I think it's important to kind of recognize that there is those times that maybe you could shift from one part of your life into another part of your life so that you're allowing yourself the time to be able to make healthy meals and to exercise. The next thing to really consider is forgiving yourself for things that don't get done or forgiving yourself for not being able to accomplish everything. At some point, we do have to say enough is enough and I'm doing too much. So I think that's another big part of balancing is being able to recognize when the plate is too full and then pull things away that you're not able to commit to for the time being. Question number 2. There are so many different protein bars out there these days. Which ones would you recommend? And how do I know if it's a good choice when it comes to nutrition? So this is a fantastic question because I think in our busy lives, we do need to have healthy snacks that we can grab on the go. And that's why I love protein bars so much. I also think they're great for satisfying cravings. So I'm going to give you guys a tool that you can use when comparing protein bars. It's an equation that allows you the ability to make sure that it's a good selection and that it's going to be able to help with your daily requirements when it comes to protein and fiber. So I'd like to look at the back of the label on the protein bar. And what you want to do is look at the total amount of carbs. From that, you're going to subtract the amount of protein and subtract the amount of fiber. If the number is 10 grams or less, then it's a good selection and I say go for it. And if it's not, then perhaps another one would be a better choice. I love Quest bars and they're really fantastic when you heat them up in the microwave as well. They get a little bit of a different texture versus having that hard texture that a protein bar would typically have. But that equation will work for all of the ones that you'll find on the market, and that should help steer your decisions. Now for our next question. I've been on a really good routine these past few months, but I'm worried about Christmas. How do you handle the holidays so that you can stay on track? So when it comes to Christmas, it's unique from other holidays in the sense that it can be a lot more than just one day that we're trying to navigate. So we might have work Christmas parties, we might have social stuff with friends, then we have our family stuff. So it can be a lot of days of trying to make good decisions. First step that I always suggest with my clients is deciding the way that you want to approach the month. So depending on where you're at, depending on what your goals are, will determine how you want to steer your decisions heading into December. So people who fall into a category 1 in my mind are people who are actively trying to lose weight in December. They either have a deadline, maybe they have a wedding coming up, maybe you're doing competition prep, maybe you're on a specific deadline and it matters that you lose weight or that you get to your goal by this date. In that particular circumstance, I would say that Christmas has to pretty much be like all of the days have been leading up to that point, depending on how close you are to kind of where that deadline is. So for example, if over the past couple of weeks you've been weighing your food or you've been being really mindful about getting protein and vegetables and staying hydrated with lots of water, you'll want to make sure that you're maintaining all of those habits for most of the days in December. You might choose that there's going to be like one day, Christmas Day, and you're going to choose to enjoy some things on that day. But I would say the rest of December, you're going to want to keep with all of the habits that you've been doing up until this point. And that will mean saying no to a lot of things, perhaps being there, but not actively participating because your goal is in the forefront. Category number 2 are people who fall into the I'm okay with not losing in December, but I do want to maintain my results up until this point. So if you fall into that category, there are a few strategies that I suggest. The first being that the days surrounding the event that you have going on, you taper back the amount that you're consuming. So if you're tracking macros, then perhaps you are cutting back a little bit on the carbs and the fats for the day to kind of save those for the event that you know you have coming up. Or perhaps you will end up making the days following the event a little bit less with the same thing in mind. So for example, say you go over by 60 grams of carbs or you go over by 10 grams of fat, you'll just take those numbers away from the upcoming days if you're tracking with MyFitnessPal. If you're not and you've just been making mindful decisions and not necessarily tracking, it's the same sort of thing. You may choose to have smaller portions the days leading up to or the days following so that the energy balance for the week turns out pretty equivalent or more in maintenance mode than being in a deficit. You'll also want to make sure that you maintain your exercise throughout December. So if you've been going to the gym or exercising from home 5 days a week, you want to make sure that you are maintaining that throughout December. Just because maybe nutrition isn't going to be 100%, we don't have to let our exercise go to the wayside as well. The third category is somebody who's either trying to gain weight or is in a build, so they're trying to build some muscle, or you may just be in a situation where you're okay with gaining some weight throughout December. So if you fall into that category, go enjoy yourself, don't worry about it, and just get back on track when the timing is right for you. Now, one other tip I have, and I share this a lot, is that Christmas is a special time. There's going to be tons of things around that are really special and unique just to this particular season. So you might have eggnog, or maybe your grandma always makes a specific pumpkin pie and it's something that you really look forward to. And my recommendation is that you choose the things that aren't generic when you're in the social settings. So the things that you totally love, go for it, right? Like go for it and enjoy it, but don't spend your calories on the generic things that are at every birthday party or the generic things that are things that you can have other times of the year. Spend your calories on the things that are really special and really unique because they're going to mean a little bit more. When it comes to alcohol consumption, if we refer back to the categories, so if you fall into a category 1 and you're trying to actively pursue your weight loss goal, I'd say no alcohol, or perhaps on 1 or 2 days, you're limiting it to just a couple of drinks. If we're trying to maintain throughout December, then it's probably okay to, again, have a couple of drinks. You might end up having 3 or 4 versus having 1 or 2, and you might have it a few days throughout the month versus having it just on one day. When it comes to the beverages that I suggest, typically wine's pretty good, low-calorie beer. Really, we just want it so that the alcohol consumption isn't a whole ton of calories. So if we stick to a liquor, you want to make sure that whatever you're mixing it with is either a beverage that's diet or going with something that's going to be reduced calories. Some of my clients love to add things like Mio or Crystal Light into their drinks as well. So that's another way that you can make things perhaps taste like juice, but not have the additional calories and sugar that juice would have. So next question is kind of a more personal or fun one. So somebody asked, have you and your fiance picked a date for the wedding? So we have. It is Saturday, September 1st of 2018. We're actually getting married pretty close to where I grew up in Kincardine. It has a beautiful beach, so we're planning for an outdoor ceremony with the reception being at the pavilion that's right beside there. So we're getting pretty pumped. We're actually going dress shopping over the next couple of weeks, so there's going to be some exciting wedding plans coming up and unfolding as 2018 unravels, and I'll be sure to share that on social media with all of you guys. All right, so our next question is, what should I eat before and after I exercise? I do believe that nutrient timing is something that does not need to be visited until you've mastered a lot of the other elements when it comes to nutrition. So Eric Helms, which is somebody who I really respect in the nutrition and fitness space, he's actually come up with some amazing pyramids that explain how you should prioritize your nutrition. So when we're trying to move up the pyramid, we do want to make sure that, okay, yes, I have the thing beneath it already taken care of. So I'm just going to go through each of those levels, and then that'll give you an idea of if that element has not been mastered yet, then there's no need to get into pre and post-workout nutrition or essentially nutrient timing. So at the base of the pyramid is your energy balance. So that is, are we taking in the right amount of calories for our goals, whether that is trying to lose weight, trying to maintain our weight, or trying to gain weight? So that's number one. Are we set with the appropriate amount of calories that are helping us work towards our goal? Once we know that that's taken care of, then we can move up to the next level of the pyramid. So the next level of the pyramid is our macronutrients. So macronutrients are, where are those calories coming from? So that's your proteins, your carbs, and your fats. So are those taken care of, and are those balanced? If so, then maybe we can dive into the next level. The next level of the pyramid is your micronutrients. So that goes into, are you hitting your daily fiber? Are you keeping your sugars under control for the day? How are your sodium levels? How are your vitamins? How are your minerals? So all of those micronutrients, are they being taken care of? If they're being taken care of, then we might get into nutrient timing. So anybody who maybe falls into an intermediate level when it comes to nutrition, and also my advanced clients, they get into pre and post-workout nutrition. But if the other things aren't taken care of, then there's no need to get all hyped up about nutrient timing. So with pre and post-workout nutrition, if this is something that you're ready to introduce, I am going to give you some ideas of how to structure that, and then some suggestions based on those numbers. Pre-workout nutrition could be as early as 2.5 hours before you actually start exercising. This is going to be very much dependent on what it is that you're eating. So some foods that we eat will digest really slowly, and some will digest really quickly. So for example, when it comes to protein, something that's going to digest really slowly would be a chicken breast, and then something that's going to digest quickly would be a protein shake. So with those two things considered, you can kind of get away with doing something closer to your training session, like a protein shake, versus if you know that you're going to be training in a couple of hours, you might opt for something like a chicken breast that's going to be slower digesting. For protein recommendations, typically for women, I suggest between 20 to 30 grams, and guys between 30 to 40, just depending on your weight and how much protein you are eating throughout the day. But those are some pretty standard ranges. When it comes to carbs, I typically suggest that 25% of what your daily intake of carbohydrates does come into your pre-workout window. And then when it comes to fats, 10 grams or less. Fats are essentially going to slow down digestion, and our goal is that the proteins and carbs are going to get where they need to go for us to have a really good training session. Now, when it comes to post-workout nutrition, it's the same case. So we're still looking same ranges when it comes to protein, and then carbs about 25%. If you have a lot of carbs for the day, you might choose to do something higher. And if you've had a longer workout session, you might also choose to do something higher than 25% of whatever your daily intake is of carbs. So that'll vary just depending on where you're at in your journey and what your numbers are set up for that day. Now, for those that may be interested in flexible dieting and figuring out your calories and figuring out how you can track your macros in MyFitnessPal, I do have a guide on my website, angelahauk.com. If you are interested, that is also something that I'm going to do a full entire episode on as well, where I dive into all about flexible dieting, how to plan out days, all those kind of things. So that'll be something in a future episode as well. Now I'd like to switch the questions over to you guys and give you something to take with you this week. So the first thing I want you to think about goes back to question number 1. Are there ways that I can reorganize my schedule to shift the priorities and make more room for the things that are really important to me? The next question I want to leave you with is, how are you going to approach the holidays in a way that best supports what your goals are or where you're at right now. So are you falling into a category 1, category 2, category 3? And I think the reason why we need to take that time for self-reflection is because that's how we are able to make our decisions ahead of time and prepare for them versus making it in that moment and then feeling guilty or feeling as though we're not happy with the way that we approach the situation. But if we've kind of already determined, okay, this is where I fall into, I'm a category 1, I'm a category 2, or I'm a category 3, we're able to go into those situations being like, okay, this is how I'm going to handle this situation, and we feel armed with the tools to be able to do that. And just as a final one, I challenge you to go out and read some labels and try to see if you can find some protein bars that fit that equation. The extra bonus challenge in relation to that is to find other snacks that fit that equation. So that's also an equation that I typically suggest for clients when they're trying to decide on if something is a healthy snack when they're actively in a fat loss phase. And it can be a great way to bring awareness to the things that you're eating and then ensuring that you're getting adequate amounts of protein and fiber from the snacks that you're choosing so that you feel satisfied and not feel like you have to go grab for something right away. So just in closing, if you liked this episode, feel free to share it with somebody who you know would love it. Feel free to leave us a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe if you like the content. And then if you have some questions for our next Q&A, feel free to toss them my way, either by sending me a private message on Instagram or Facebook, because I always love hearing from you. I hope you guys have an amazing week. Thanks for tuning in, and whatever your goals, just go after them. You won't regret it.